So why do you think selling and being different is so powerful in sales?
Yeah, hey, good morning, Brian. I think just there's so much noise out there now. If you're thinking from a customer or buyer standpoint, there's so much spam, there's so much just getting blasted with emails or LinkedIn DMs. Like it's so easy just to kind of flood into that sea of sameness where it's just everything's the same. And then you turn into a commodity basically. So from my standpoint, and I've been in a few different industries, if you're not different, if you're not standing out, if you're not memorable in some way, it's going to be really hard to be successful in sales because otherwise you're just going to kind of fall into that same person dumping features and benefits and all that, and you're never going to get over that hump to get to the levels you want to. So I've always kind of tried to be different, try to go outside of the box, and sometimes it's aggressive and it's putting myself out there, but I feel like that's helped me, and most people remember me because of that.
Yeah, but I see kind of two things going on today. One, people feel like they have to sound and act like a salesperson,
Hmm.
meaning the uptone, the gregarious, you know, company voice that people turn on. And I've had people say, "Oh yeah, my kids say, Dad, you have that work voice on now." The kids recognize when the parent goes into sales mode. And don't you think the customers figure that out too? And then the other thing that I see a lot on LinkedIn is just robots. Everybody, what's the magic cadence? What's the subject line that you use? And here's the secret: it's not the subject line that's going to get anyone to buy. People want to connect with another human being. That's why we hire sales people, not sales robots. And it's crazy that we hire salespeople, but then we make them want to behave like machines.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That sales voice, or even when I do stuff like this, I do try to, because I'm kind of monotone, so I have to watch myself. I have to like step it up a little bit when I'm on Zoom and whatnot. But yeah, it's just, I mean, no one wants to be doing that stuff, and it's like you're slowly dying inside if you're doing some cadence or just calling people 50 people a day, just saying the same thing. Like you're not even really being yourself at that point because you're just like reading some script and you're not even thinking. So it's like just having conversations with people, and there's a lot of other things you can do to be different, but I think that's what people don't see anymore. So if you actually just have a conversation with someone and you're not doing like some sales pitchy type thing or marketing features and benefits, that's where you actually, I mean, as crazy as it is, that actually stands out more than a lot of things right now because they're expecting you to go straight into the pitch or that features and benefits. And like if you just have a conversation and ask them about them, I mean, that's one of the things I had was, just having a conversation with people and being gregarious and outgoing and just getting to know them on a personal level. Like, I mean, of course you got to get to the business at some point and like get to that, but like that stands out in itself because I think everyone expects just to get pitched, especially if you're like an executive level.
Right. And when you do it, you walk right into the commodity trap. You act like a salesperson, you get treated like a salesperson, meaning if they don't need anything, they don't talk to you. And what we want is them to want to talk with us, even if they don't need anything about the product or the deal. Do they enjoy talking to us? That's what, when you deal with another person, you see their phone ID come up on your phone and you make a decision. Do I want to talk to this person or not? And why would you pick it up? Maybe you do it by impulse. You either need something or you enjoy talking with them.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back like the best times and best relationships I had with customers, and it was almost like I was an extension of their company, like because I
Yeah.
was there so much. Like, they give you a badge and all this different stuff. So like at some of the hospitals when I was doing stuff with Home Depot, like I was basically like an employee for them, like an extension, like making their life easier, like project manager for all these implementations and things. So that's when you really kind of stand out for sure. Like you don't want to be that person every time they call, their eyes roll back and they're like, oh man, Justin wants to sell me something, or he's trying to get this deal in before December 31st, before the year closes so he can hit his number. Like you don't want to
Right.
be that person. And that's tough for sure.
Because what we want to get to is the real truth with clients. And to do that, they have to be comfortable and trust us and be open and be able to give us bad news without us feeling bad. So it's like that honest, open, proactive conversation. And a lot of reps tell me, well, I don't have time for that. I go, what are you doing? Spending all your time on people who won't talk to you? That's what they're doing. It's like they're not going to buy. The people who will talk to you, you have a chance of them buying. Sitting around begging, asking, are you interested? Are you interested? Are you interested? They're not interested. I can save you a lot of time. You have to create that interest. And that's what the conversation's about. That's why we have salespeople. It's not just to answer bonehead questions. We can have support for that. We have a chat bot on the web page for that. It's not to be just an interactive chat bot.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Like you have to, like, I think of myself as trying to be like a subject matter expert or like, key opinion leader, whatever you want to say in my respective domain of expertise, I guess. So I try to like invest in that. So people like want to talk to me because I'm up to date on the trends. I work in different industries, so I can give them different perspectives. So I try to like want to be talked to because I'm different and I'm thinking outside the box. I'm trying to like invest in what they really care about, right? That's the other thing too, is like you're so concerned about yourself and the closing the deal and all the features and blah 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 that you're not even talking about them and getting them talking. So that's another thing too, that unfortunately that's as bad as that is, like that's a way to stand out too, is just talking to them about what they care about and the problems that they actually are worried about versus talking about everything you care about and like all that type of stuff. So yeah, I try to do a variety of things to be different, but that's one thing too, is like being a subject matter expert, like trying to focus on them, like how does their problems relate to whatever I can potentially help them with, that type of thing.
And I think that's it, because we have to find out what is our superpower in this area. A lot of people think it's, oh, talking about sports, that's okay to get it started, but what is it they're willing to talk about? What do they want to talk about? Most likely it's themselves. It's not us. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
big leap for a lot of salespeople, because salespeople want to talk and they love talking about themselves, their product, what they're going through, how great it is, all the benefits and everything. But until the other person cares, they're not listening. And the number one characteristic that comes up in interviewing these great salespeople is empathy. And ask yourself, look at your sales process. Is it empathetic or is it the opposite of empathy? Which, the definition calls callous. Callous means you care about you and you're trying to get your objective and you don't really care. And if it happens to work out for them, great. If it doesn't, that's their problem. That's not exactly, as opposed to really digging into what they're going through. How are they doing it today? What do they care about? How are they going to win from this? And you're not going to get that in your magic cadence. This craziness that we automated stupidity today. We took what didn't work and we put it, maybe if we do it 100 times more, because it does work 1%, and we just need to automate it so we don't have to hire 100 reps. We just, buy a tool and we fill in the stupidity and we aim it at our total addressable market and we shoot it out all day long. And people aren't talking about the downside is that people have become callous to it. Domains are being blocked or degraded, so it now goes straight to the spam folder. And follow up is just popping that email to the top of their inbox today. Like that does something.
Oh, it's brutal. I mean, I changed jobs recently and I'm like kind of, doing my own business. So I get hit up a lot more now than I did before on like LinkedIn and emails. And I'm actually very sympathetic to salespeople, right? Like I'll give people a chance if they go above and beyond or do something different. But like it's just like it's all the same stuff. I can't even read it. Like it's like 3 paragraphs of like blah blah blah, and I don't even like read it. And it's all the same. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's that cadence. It's probably not even a person typing it. It's just like an automatic like boom, whether it's a DM or on your email. And even me being sympathetic to salespeople, I still don't even look at it. I mean, maybe I'll look at 1 out of 20 if it's something like funny on like the subject line, or some people will do memes and gifs and stuff. But like outside of that, it's like I don't even look at it. And that's bad if I'm saying that. So you can only imagine what a customer is going to say. But if you would just like do some homework, research about them, ask them about themselves, ask about the problems they care about, understand their business. By the time you do all that, they'll probably want to talk to you about what you care about or what you potentially solve for them. So I mean, they're going to be interested in you if you put that time and effort in at the beginning. And unfortunately, people are just so caught up with like what their bosses or their companies are telling them to do that they maybe lose that personal touch because they're so stressed from whatever number of calls or cadence that they're supposed to be doing.
And people don't think through that your urgency doesn't create anyone else's need.
Mm-hmm.
Our need to do, N number of deals per month, per quarter, or meetings doesn't create the need for anyone else to meet with you. So you putting this pressure on yourself, who's that helping? It is probably degrading your skill set because you're desperate and you're doing things that you wouldn't normally do. You push too fast. You're moving 100 miles an hour where the other person is standing still, waving you goodbye. You're just driving past them. As opposed to sitting down and thinking through, how do I get this person to engage? Why am I contacting them? Because I bet out of all those contacts that people are sending you on LinkedIn, how many of them are you even qualified to buy or be interested in?
Very few.
1%?
Very few. Yeah, probably less than 10%, I'm sure.
And if they took 10 seconds and looked at your LinkedIn profile, could they not have qualified you out to say like, this is not a good match? He's not only is he not in market, he's not even in, going to be in market in 5 years. If you get SEO services and virtual assistants and marketing things, and I get a lot of these things about the PPP loans all the time, and not even for my company, because they scrape someone else's company off of my profile just because it's at the top. So they think I work at that company, or they take my title and they take that company and they put those things together. And I did a little thing on LinkedIn so I can tell if somebody scraped my name versus did it manually.
Oh, nice.
So I can tell just by how they address me if it's an automated thing or not. And about half are automated.
Jeez. Well, that's smart to do it that way. And unfortunately, that's kind of ruining it for a lot of salespeople, just all those cadences and that process. That's why I'm a big fan of being different, but it's honestly pretty easy to do if you're not doing the cadence stuff. I mean, you can stand out pretty quickly. And there's a lot of other things I do too, like video emails, personal branding on LinkedIn, and posting stuff. I mean, that's above and beyond. That definitely makes me stand out. So I'm just all about it. Like, and most of the time when I have success, I'm pretty certain it's because I'm doing things like that. And otherwise they never would have agreed to meet with me and all that if they weren't intrigued a little bit, like, oh, hey, this guy's actually not just spamming me. So maybe I'll give him a shot.
Yeah. And I think also, what is your superpower in this area? Is it talking about the industry? Is it the domain experience? Are you charming and likable? Can you talk to anybody about anything? Because everybody does want to talk about themselves. The problem is, so does a salesperson. So, but it's our job to engage them. It's not their job to tolerate us. And if you listen to the great salespeople, they don't talk about the product. They don't talk about them. They don't talk about their company. They get the other person chatting. And all of a sudden, that's where the magic happens. And that's why they hire salespeople. And I think managers just assume that we're all given this gift but then they pressure us so much that we don't even think about it. Because if you have 50 calls or 100 calls to make a day, how do you have time or energy to put any effort into finding out what the other person cares about or be different?
Yeah, you don't. You're just a machine,
You're
which
just a
kind of
machine doing dumb
defeats
things faster.
yeah, which defeats the whole purpose of being a salesperson. So yeah, it's I mean, I try to kind of go the extra mile. I have my personal brand thing. I do video emails. I have experience in multiple industries. People like my story about how I am doing what I'm doing now. So depending on who I'm talking to or what I'm doing, I have different things. I try to be different, but it's pretty consistent across the board. Like as far as my process, like how I prospect, what I do, like on LinkedIn, it's all kind of just creating this different mentality, I guess, that I have to stand out, because if you don't do that, I mean, you're not going to get very far doing the cadence thing. Maybe if you have a big company, awesome product that's like crushing it, you might get away with it a little bit, but otherwise you're not going to stand out. So it's not even a choice really. Like I feel like you have to be different if you want to be successful in like commission type sales jobs.
Yeah. And it always bothered me because when I worked with other salespeople, I could just see how clients reacted to them. That they roll their eyes, or they try and avoid them, or come up with some excuse to end the meeting early because they didn't want that. They didn't find value in it because the salesperson's just pushing about the deal, pushing for the next step, pushing for some other access within the account. And the client felt like they were just a tool for the salesperson to get what they wanted. And does that person going to take your call the next time you call? There's a good caller ID today. And most people, even if they have called it, they don't pick it up anyway. They want to see what they screen it. They let it go to voicemail and see what they want if you don't know already.
Yeah, you don't want to have that desperation like you were talking about earlier. That you can kind of smell that from a mile away, and especially this time of year, like in December, I'm sure there's been a lot of that going around to try to finish the year out. But that's never a good look. And people, yeah, you're right. You can immediately see that, like when a customer is like annoyed or they're not paying attention or they're distracted, and you just have that same salesperson just. It's like I was watching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles over the holidays, and there's that one part where Steve Martin's like making fun of John Candy, like he's that doll dispenser, just like pull the cord back, and he just keeps like yapping. That's
Yep.
like that salesperson in the meeting, just like, oh my gosh, like get me out of here. That's not where you want to be, right?
Yeah. And we've been in those meetings where the sales rep will not shut up and the client starts, trying to make polite gestures like, this is over, let's move on. And because being charming and likable is not up to us. It's up to the recipient of our charm and likability. So what we think is almost irrelevant. It's what they think. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't try and be charming and likable. And there's tons of videos on LinkedIn or on YouTube to learn about these elements. But even if you model, like, who are the most likable people, it's typically talk show hosts, late night. Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, you might have different opinions based off politics and style, but clearly they're likable. And you can say, well, why are they likable? And break it down and like, how do I build that into my personality? How do I become more outgoing and likable? The easiest is talk about the other person. I used to have this opener. I said, how'd you end up here? How'd they get you? And that would take me from the reception desk to the meeting room and probably 15 minutes into the meeting. And I didn't have to ask another word. And then the other people would come in and all of a sudden it was just easy because I didn't want to talk. And then the hard part was, okay, you have to stand up and give an hour-long presentation. I go, I don't want to do that. So I'd start drawing out the architecture. So how are you doing it today? Engage them, get them talking. because my power was I knew the technology really well, but I wasn't entertaining. And I didn't want to be an entertainer. I wanted to go in and convey the differences and the power of the product and the technology collaboratively. Because if they don't engage, they're just being educated.
No, you're 100% right. I do the same type of thing. Like I ask people what their story is, and then I'll drop a couple tidbits that I did my homework about how they went from company X to company Y, and you've been there for 10 years. And then I'm just like, tell me a little bit more about your story. And the next thing you know, they're talking for 10 or 15 minutes, probably giving you all kind of nuggets of stuff that you can remember for later. And then they feel good about it. Also, like the whole like death by PowerPoint thing. Like I did a presentation recently a couple weeks ago, and someone else was like the keynote or whatever, and I was doing a workshop after, but I got to listen to their keynote, and it was like a smaller setting. It was only like 20 people, so it was pretty easy to be interactive. But that person just like talked at them the whole time, and like slide after slide after slide after slide. And I'm like, man, and it was good. It's not like he didn't have good content, but it was more not engaging the audience. So like when me and my like other business partner were doing it, we just immediately were asking questions to them, like trying to get them engaged. Like we had worksheets so they could do stuff, like just literally like we did have slides, like we had PowerPoints, but we're also like asking questions like almost every slide to get them talking about whatever the topic. And that it's crazy how that just makes the meeting feel so much better when they're talking, and they're going to feel better about it too, because they're actually part of it and talking, and no one wants to see another 30-page PowerPoint either.
Yeah, because what is it? It's a lecture. And unless you're incredibly curious about how it works and what it is, you drift off after what, 5-10 minutes? And then because I can tell, because after it, they ask questions that you covered for 10 minutes ago. It's like, but people don't really learn unless they are engaged. And I think today, too many people are looking for tips and tricks or gimmicks to be successful in sales. And there's a lot of influencers out there that have made careers off of gimmicks. The problem is that the gimmicks can work if you integrate it into your personality, but it's like anything, it has to be authentic. And to get something to be authentic, it has to be practiced over and over again, not just spewed.
Yeah, there's a lot of hacks and tips and tricks in sales that maybe work one time, but it's going to be impossible for it to work consistently. So yeah, I'm totally there with you now. I also went to this big conference recently, and like the keynote, this was a classic one. It was a keynote speaker for like there's like 250 people there, but instead of her talking for an hour, we had each table with like 7 or 8 people kind of do this like workshop, and like there'd be someone chose a moderator, they asked all these questions, so each table was engaging with each other, and then she would chime in like every 7 or 8 minutes to go to the next thing and like talk. But like literally I was like, that was like the best keynote ever, because she had everybody else engaging and talking, and she didn't even talk more than like 10 minutes out of the hour, that was pretty cool. So that was another good example that just popped in my head.
Yeah. And if you look through like TED Talks, why do you like certain ones? Is it the topic or the way the person presents it? It's usually the way the person presents it.
Mm-hmm.
They either tell a really good story, or they're very funny, or that they're just charming and likable. But break that down, because I think selling is this aggregate of a bunch of micro skills. And I think two people just say, well, I take like the cold call opener. People will be like, well, that didn't work for me. It might be the way you said it, not the words. But people can't get that. They're like, I said the words, I didn't get the deal. I did that. I tried that. That was always the response I get when I do training in person. It's like, I don't doubt that you did it. What I'm questioning is like, what was the context? How did you do it? Was it too early or too late? Was it desperate or was it organic? And people, oh, I just want it to work. And it's like, well, that's not what this is. It's this very complex thing where the stimulus and the response has a large time gap and a lot of variables that are hard to control and analyze. So what do? We come up with little superstitions and little platitudes that try and keep us on track. Not that they're wrong, but they're not complete. Because I think we constantly got to be looking at ourselves as that performer. How well are we doing it? Not just that we're doing it.
It's a great point. Yeah, you have to have a process behind everything you're doing, and it's those micro habits you're talking about that build up. There's a lot of stuff involved. That's not just like one thing, but that all builds up to having a process, which that makes you different too, because most people don't have a process. They're just like you say, the blind leading the blind, doing whatever sequence they're supposed to be doing. But that will help you stand out. And then being likable and personable, gregarious, that obviously helps, but it's probably not gonna close deals,
No.
those bigger enterprise deals. I mean, it might get you a certain length and people are still going to talk to you, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the right business decision when there's a lot of money on the line. So if you don't have some other things that make you different, I feel like you can't, like you always hear that adage of like, oh, you have to be outgoing and gregarious. That's the only way to be successful in sales and like be the life of the party. That maybe that was the case years ago, but I don't think you can get by with just that. You have to have that process behind it. And it's like, even if you know what to do, doesn't mean you perform it correctly. I mean, how many times have you had a meeting that you thought you were prepared for and it went sideways and you it just got completely blown up for whatever reason? So you have to like execute the right way too, which is easier said than done.
Yeah, because I worked for this guy. He was a great manager. I liked working with him, but he was that relationship guy, and he couldn't talk about the product or the market or the industry. He could talk about sports. And when we go in and the other person likes sports, went really well. And I remember going through this QBR where his manager, the vice president, was pushing back on this deal. And he was saying, oh, no, they really like us. We're getting along really well. And the VP goes, well, I don't care if he's your brother. He's not going to buy it unless it makes sense, economic sense. And why isn't he going to buy it from a competitor? And my boss just went blank. And it was true. It's like we were in a highly technical, highly competitive business, and you had to be likable, but that only gets you the information. That gets you the meeting, that gets you rapport, that gets you them opening up. But you still have to find out what is the technical driver and the business driver for them to act. And your rapport with one of the people doesn't transfer to all the people. You have a great personal relationship with one person there, but they're not the sole decision maker, either technically or economically. And I think too much we fall in love with our champion instead of working our champion and working with other people within the account.
That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's if you're focused on one person only, they may like you to your point, but that doesn't get you to the finish line. So that's why I do a lot of things like the LinkedIn stuff, because it gets my name out there and more people know me within that organization. So yeah, you have to kind of get your name out there for sure. But yeah, it's funny, the process and actually delivering it correctly is another thing too of being different, because everybody might have you could have a good process, but if you're not actually executing it the right way, then that can put you in a tough spot. So